Reverend Dr. Allen Dillon. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am a presidential candidate for 2028. I will be officially filing with the FEC by the end of the week. So, letting you know, be prepared for midterms because this time I'm not coming in late to the race. I'm coming in early, and we will win. And we will actually affect change in this country, unlike the next 4 years that we're going to be facing. But what I want to talk to you about right now is what we're going to be facing within 24 hours of Monday, January 20th, after Trump is inaugurated, and also within the first 30 days. So number one that we're going to have to look at and be worried about is the tariffs, because I can tell you right now that Canada, they've already have been preparing and everything else. So if Trump does go after Canada and impose the 25% tariff on Canada, who is our closest ally, second to Britain. Canada's always been there, to help us, everything else. Now, why would any president choose to make an enemy of the two countries that are above and below you and nobody else around, no other countries except us in the middle? Because that means that, God forbid, we get attacked again, whether it be terroristic or whether it be, an attempted invasion or whatever. Do you really think that Canada or Mexico is going to do anything to help us? They're going to have the mentality of, as long as they're not bombing us, as long as they're not invading us, not our problem. And that's going to be thanks to Trump. Now, with the tariff with Mexico, the 25%, that one, yes, it's going to cause problems and issues with some of our agricultural and other needs and stuff that we get from Mexico. But I believe that this should also be the kick in the balls that the Mexican government needs, because they have done absolutely nothing in order to thwart, dissuade, to curve, to stop, or do anything as far as the gangs and the cartels and everything and all the other, organizations that run their streets, run their towns, run their cities, everything else. Because guess what? They get kickbacks. So that I understand. Only problem is that currently a lot of our automotive, our made in America, vehicles are assembled for the most part down in Mexico. They're finished off here, but majority of the work is done in Mexico on assembly lines. So that's a problem. You also have some other industrial stuff that is done in Mexico and brought up. Refrigeration, you have construction stuff, you have, even just mine materials in order to make concrete mix or everything else. There's a lot in Mexico to where they have these minds going, so to speak. So that's, like I said, it's going to cause a problem. And again, with the hit with Canada, I guarantee you, and with Mexico, we're going to see a drop in the stock market, which it's already started to happen, as I predicted and told you, because you not only have Budweiser, Jaeger, Coors Light, all of the beer makers, but you also have, Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, all of our beer and liquor distributors are going to be taking a major hit when Canada says, guess what? No American alcohol shall be bought or sold in Canada. They are one of the highest importers of our beer and liquor. So watch those prices fall. When it comes to Mexico, watch the automotive stocks start to plummet. When Mexico decides that they're not going to uphold their contracts with the United States, or they're going to try to charge even more to produce the vehicles or produce any of the other materials that are needed. Also, very important is the fact that all of our wood that we use in construction and building houses and everything else, it's fair to say 85% comes from Canada. So remember how in 2020, a 2x4 by 8 jumped from $2.50 to becoming $5-6. Who's to say that it's not going to double again? On top of that, obviously, okay, so then what the day of the tariff is China. We get steel from China instead of making our own. And number one, don't you think that they're not going to be giving us the exact primo quality or anything else that is made in China? Like, I don't know, iPhones. Luckily Samsung is a South Korean company, and also there's assembly in Japan as well. So luckily Samsung good, but as far as iPhones and stuff goes, look for those prices to go up. So, like I said, we're looking at a bad situation. But the worst situation is one of Trump's day one promises of the mass deportation, and also canceling and writing an executive order that makes birthright in America null and void. I will repeat that. He's going to sign an executive presidential order that cannot be overturned by Congress, that makes any natural born second or third generation immigrant an actual legal citizen. I want all of you to think about that, because this affects so many of you. And for him, it doesn't matter where you come from, whether it's India, whether you escaped China, whether you escaped North Korea, whether you escaped Sudan or any other war-torn country, came here and started a life, and your children were born here. That means that you're still going to get deported, even though you were given a green card, even though you were given legal residency here, that not only are you being deported, but all of your children and grandchildren face deportation because all of a sudden being born in America is no longer a birthright. Well, if that's the case, then that makes him an illegitimate president if he signs that order, because if nobody is considered a natural born American, and revokes the birthright statute of being born here makes you an automatic citizen, that means that he is an illegitimate president, and that means that anybody who doesn't have ties back to the colonial times being here, guess what? Even then, who's to say that that's not going to be disrupted? So that literally means that anybody he deems as unworthy of being in this country, no matter how long you've been here, no matter what generation you are or whatever, that you are not a naturalized citizen just for being born in America. Let me tell you, that violates so many constitutional amendments and constitutional rights and what is known as constitutional common law rights. Those are things that he does not have the authority to change. And yet, that's what he's going to try to do. So, and also, I want anybody who has family who's in law enforcement, FBI, even our border agents, anyone who is, again, either first, second, or third generation immigrant here, that your status, he's going to try to revoke it. So that means that police officers, that means FBI agents, Department of Defense, military, Border Patrol, Homeland Security, literally everything, even, those who have worked their way up within the military infrastructure and work at the Pentagon and everything else, they can be deported because he's putting it on there that it does not matter the age that you are, that he's going to revoke the natural born citizen aspect of it when you come from an immigrant family. I'm sorry, but this is something, again, that a dictator does, and something that somebody who has no regard whatsoever for constitutional rights, the civil rights, nothing. So I'm just giving you guys heads up of what this man plans to do. Because with this, mass deportation, that means that he's going to have to call on military, every police officer, every FBI agent, every National Guard, everybody possible in order to get on this, in order to make it happen. Well, here's the problem, is that there are those who believe in constitutional rights, and that when the government oversteps And when the government tries to take away God-given rights like citizenship that is embedded in our Constitution, and he's going to try to make it null and void. So how is it that, now the one thing Congress can do is they can impeach him, within the first 30 days? Because if he puts these things in order and puts these executive orders in place, which are unconstitutional, these are impeachable and removal from office allowances that are given to both the Supreme Court and Congress. Because think about Congress members as well, because there are first and second generation members of Congress of immigrant families who have worked hard to make it there and to help you and to be your voice that are going to be removed. But what he's not planning on is the fact that in the United States, the militia outnumbers, even combined, all federal authority, federal officers, army, and police. The militias in the United States outnumber all of those combined 3-to-1 minimum. Now, the militia, they have a policy that they hold near and dear, which is upholding constitutional rights. Now, that being said, with him trying to impose these things, I've said it before, I'll say it again. We are looking at another Charlottesville 2.0 or worse, to where he could literally spark a civil war 2.0 in America. This needs to stop. And obviously, we don't want Vance being able to step in, because the thing is that Vance is also part of Trump's plan, because with some of these executive orders, it does become and fall upon the responsibility of the Vice President of the United States to verify, just like any other legal document where you need witness and somebody else who, verifies it, certifies it, agrees with it, all that. So we don't need Vance becoming the president, because all he's going to do is take up the mantle of Trump, but on a more extreme basis and more extreme philosophy and everything else. So let's prepare for that. He also plans on reversing pretty much every single thing that Biden did. Same as he did on his first day when he, revoked and got rid of Obamacare his first day during his first term. Then we have to look at his drill, not taking into consideration that the pipeline that goes through and will affect the Sioux Nation, Blackfoot Nation, and other tribal nations that have stopped that pipeline from being activated, because if anything happens to it, that oil would run downhill and literally obliterate and will contaminate waters that they fish off of, areas where they hunt, where they live, their, farms and everything else. But it will also affect those even further, because there's a lot of farms further south of those reservations that use that same river where the pipeline runs over, and if it's damaged, will ruin, I would say, at least, I'm going, I'm minimizing as much as possible. It will affect at least 20% of the crops and everything else that is produced in the United States. So he needs to think about these things with some kind of intelligence. And then him claiming that he's bringing back, that, the whole thing with Mexico and the vehicles and all of that, the auto industry, that if it's supposed to be made in America, if it's supposed to be an American-made product and everything else, that it's going to return to, American people being on the assembly line, everything made, produced, and built here in America. Well, I don't know if he's gotten in touch with the auto industry, but I don't think they're on the same page here. Because look at the last time when he was running for office and won. Prior to his winning and inauguration, he screamed, ranted, and raved about infrastructure to, bringing things back to America and making America strong like it once was, and, not needing, to import products and import things, to where America could be self-sufficient again like we used to be. He did none of that. So right now, the only thing that he is looking to do is start an economic war. And he talked about bringing down inflation when he's going to cause even worse inflation. But worse than that is that he claimed that during his first tenure as president, that he was not a wartime president. And yet, Israel knows that he's going to stick behind them. So they've increased their bombings and everything else, and to where, even Hamas, Hezbollah, Fatah, and Lebanese, resilience and all that other stuff, they're trying to say, hey, look, we'll give you the hostages back, just give us, what we asked for, let's just end this, give us our land back and all that. Well, Benjamin Netanyahu, he wants to get the hostages back, but I don't think that he's even cared, because they've bombed already and killed their own hostages, which has been proven. So, again, are we going to be entering into another Middle East war? The other thing he stated is that because, he's friends with Putin and friends with the Ukraine president, that, he can get this war ended, within 24 hours of him being inaugurated. Well, here's the problem, is that just within the past 48 hours, Russia has just literally lit up Ukraine with the term that they've used is missiles en masse, meaning, they've pretty much strapped on, every missile, bomb, whatever they could put, and also surface to air, all those things, to where they've literally, for the first time, like since World War II, and what the Nazis did, to where he just literally just bombed the living hell out of Ukraine just within the past 48 hours. So I don't know what Trump's plan is, but he's saying that he could end the war. The only way to do that would be to either get American forces or NATO involved in order to stop all this, because you also have North Korea getting involved by sending troops in order to support Putin and his ground troops and everything else. Again, this is just something to where he's causing a pressure cooker situation, to where you put enough pressure inside of a pressure cooker, it's going to either explode or something is going to give. And right now, it doesn't seem like Putin and North Korea have the mentality, nor have any sign or anything of giving up on Ukraine, and also staging for Poland and other countries. On top of that, China, who has been preparing for the past 20 years, and Trump already, started with the leader of China when he talked about, when the leader of China said, well, I have a red button, and Trump's response, instead of de-escalating, said, well, I have a red button too, only mine works. It's the fact that we have spent 20 years, when we spent 20 years of war in the Middle East and other places, and we focused on that, China's been focusing on our attack methods and everything else. So that's why I'm saying this is not heading down a good path. And unless Trump seriously does some soul searching between now and Monday and figures out a better way to do things, we're looking at troubled times ahead. And this is just within the first 30 days. So God knows what happens over the next 4 years. But that is my time. And again, I warn you, if you have stocks, I honestly would, either short sale or get rid of your, stocks and some of the companies that are going to be affected. And also, just be prepared. And lastly, pray for us. Everybody needs to pray for America right now. So, with that said, may God, Yeshua, and the Holy Spirit bless you all, your family, your loved ones, your friends, protect you from your enemies, protect you from the enemy. Shalom, shalom, and assalamu alaikum. Also, most importantly, please continue to keep our brother Paulie in prayers for healing and speedy recovery. See you guys next week.